What I'm about to tell you about was never meant to be public. After 2 decades of industry silence, exclusive footage from Parker Posey's unreleased cosmic horror film has finally surfaced, revealing why studio executives buried it and the real reason her collaboration with an acclaimed director ended in a mysterious lawsuit that changed indie filmmaking forever. This isn't just another Hollywood scandal. This is the revelation that could unravel everything we thought we knew about one of indie cinema's most enigmatic stars. Between you and me, what happened on that film set goes far beyond creative differences. The footage I've obtained shows something so disturbing that powerful people have spent millions keeping it hidden. My industry source, someone who was there when it all went down, has finally come forward with the truth. And trust me, it's more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Before we dive deeper, I need to make something clear. What I'm sharing today puts me at significant risk. There's a reason this footage has remained buried for 20 years. There's a reason Parker Posey has never publicly discussed this project. And there's a reason certain studio executives still refuse to acknowledge its existence. The film, codenamed Celestial Witness, began production in early 2003. On paper, it was positioned as the defining indie film of the decade. Parker Posey, fresh off her string of indie darling roles, was set to play an astronomer who discovers something in the night sky that challenges everything we understand about our place in the universe. What the tabloids don't know is that this wasn't just fiction. The screenplay was allegedly based on classified NASA documents that had been leaked to the director. According to my source, who worked as a production assistant on set, the original concept changed dramatically after Posey, and the director visited a remote observatory in New Mexico 3 weeks before principal photography. Something happened during that visit. Something that transformed both the film and everyone involved with it. When they returned, the entire script was rewritten. The budget doubled overnight. And most tellingly, 3 NASA consultants suddenly joined the production team. My source tells me these weren't ordinary technical advisors. They had security clearances and frequently took private calls outside the set perimeter. But that's nothing compared to what happened next. The footage I've obtained shows Parker Posey in character, standing before what appears to be astronomical charts. But these weren't props created by the art department. My source confirmed these were actual star maps, classified ones, showing anomalies that mainstream science has yet to acknowledge publicly. In the raw footage, you can clearly hear Posey breaking character, turning to someone off camera and asking, "Is this real? Are we allowed to show this?" The director's response, caught on the hot mic, is what truly sends chills down my spine. They said we could hide it in plain sight. No one will believe it's real anyway. The indie film controversy that followed wasn't about artistic differences as reported. My industry source revealed to me that the studio executives who viewed the rough cut immediately shut down production. Not because the film was bad, but because it was too revealing. The official story about budget overruns. A carefully constructed lie to mask the truth. Between takes, Posey can be heard discussing the structures visible in certain telescope footage. What structures? Why would this conversation lead to a film being completely buried? And why did 3 executives from the studio's parent company, a corporation with significant defense contracts, personally oversee the confiscation of all footage? The director feud that made headlines was merely a smokescreen. What really happened was far more complex. After production was halted, the director threatened to release specific scenes online. 2 days later, his home was broken into. The only items taken: his computer and hard drives. Coincidence? I think not. Parker Posey's sudden retreat from major projects following this film wasn't a career choice, as many have speculated. According to my source, she was presented with a non-disclosure agreement so restrictive that it essentially prevented her from working on any space-related content for the next decade. The settlement amount: reportedly 8 figures, an astronomical sum for an indie film that never saw the light of day. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. 3 members of the post-production team developed the same rare neurological condition within months of working with specific footage from the observatory scenes. Medical records I've obtained suggest exposure to something that affected their temporal lobe function, the part of the brain that processes visual information, and interestingly, is associated with certain types of hallucinations. The band footage I've acquired shows something in the background of one scene, something that was never meant to be captured on film. When enhanced and analyzed by video experts, it reveals what appears to be a structure on the lunar surface that doesn't match any known natural formation. More tellingly, this structure doesn't appear in any publicly available lunar maps or NASA photographs. They don't want this getting out, but the truth is this film wasn't shut down because of any conventional Hollywood reason. It was buried because it accidentally captured something that challenges everything we've been told about space exploration and what may exist beyond our atmosphere. The space conspiracy elements weren't fictional plot devices, as everyone assumed. My source confirms that the director had been approached by a whistleblower from a well-known space agency months before production began. This whistleblower provided documents and footage that formed the basis of what was supposed to be fictional narrative. But as filming progressed, the line between fiction and documentary began to blur in terrifying ways. In one particularly chilling piece of leaked footage, Posey is rehearsing a monologue about contact protocols, specific procedures for first contact scenarios. The technical jargon she recites wasn't created by screenwriters. According to my source, these were actual protocols developed by a think tank contracted by the government in the 1990s. Protocols that have never been acknowledged publicly. The lawsuit that followed the production shutdown wasn't just about money or creative control. Court documents, heavily redacted but partially accessible through FOIA requests, reference national security implications and contractual obligations to third-party governmental entities. Why would an indie film about space have national security implications unless it contained something authentic? Parker Posey's representatives have consistently denied interview requests about this project for 2 decades. But a former assistant who worked with her during this period told me something revealing. She came back from that observatory a different person. Whatever she saw there, or whatever they showed her, changed her fundamental understanding of everything. The director, whose career effectively ended after this controversy, now lives off the grid in South America. His final public statement before disappearing from the industry was cryptic. Some truths aren't ours to tell. I've made peace with that now. What truth was he referring to? And who decided it wasn't his to tell? My investigation has uncovered that the observatory where the pivotal pre-production visit took place has received over $300 million in classified funding since 2003. For a facility that officially conducts routine astronomical research, This level of investment raises serious questions, especially considering it's operated by a private contractor with deep ties to aerospace and defense industries. The footage I've obtained shows something else disturbing. During a scene where Posey's character discovers a signal pattern, real astronomers who have analyzed this footage confirm that the mathematical sequence shown on screen corresponds to actual unexplained radio signals detected from a specific region of space, signals that mainstream science has yet to publicly acknowledge or explain. But here's where Hollywood and reality collide in the most unsettling way. The studio that shut down production was acquired just 3 months later by a multinational corporation with significant investments in private space exploration. The executive who personally ordered all footage to be confiscated was subsequently appointed to a government advisory position related to space policy. Coincidence? The evidence suggests otherwise. The truth finally exposed is that Celestial Witness wasn't just another indie film. It was an attempt to acclimatize the public to certain realities, a soft disclosure project that went too far, too fast. When Posey and the director deviated from the approved narrative, the entire project was buried, along with the careers of anyone who pushed back. What they've been hiding goes beyond typical Hollywood scandal. The footage shows Posey breaking character during a particularly intense scene, turning to the director and asking, "Are we really doing this? Are we really telling them?" The director's response is inaudible in the clip, but Posey's expression, a mixture of fear and resolve, speaks volumes. 3 crew members who worked specifically on the observatory scenes have refused all interview requests. One relocated to Australia within weeks of production shutting down. Another changed careers entirely, despite being an award-winning cinematographer. The third has no digital footprint whatsoever since 2004. People don't just disappear from the industry and erase their entire professional existence without reason. The most compelling evidence comes from comparing the leaked footage with official statements. NASA publicly denied any involvement with the film, yet my source provided call sheets clearly showing 3 NASA representatives present on set for specific scenes that coincidentally contain the most controversial astronomical imagery. Parker Posey's performance in the leaked footage is unlike anything in her established filmography. There's a rawness, a genuine fear in her eyes during certain scenes that no acting coach could instill. My source confirms that during one pivotal scene, the director abandoned the script entirely and simply recorded Posey's reaction to being shown something off-camera, something that left her visibly shaken and struggling to maintain composure. The indie film community's silence on this controversy speaks volumes. Directors who collaborated with Posey before and after this project refused to discuss it. Film festival organizers who allegedly saw early footage have uniformly denied any knowledge of the project. This level of coordinated silence is unprecedented in an industry built on relationships and shared experiences. But the most damning evidence of all, the systematic removal of all references to this project from industry databases. Try finding any pre-production announcements from 2003. They've been scrubbed. Press releases that my source confirms existed have vanished from digital archives. Even the working title, Celestial Witness, returns 0 relevant results in film production databases that catalog every other project from that period. What happened to Parker Posey during the making of this film? Why has one of indie cinema's most outspoken talents maintained absolute silence, about a project that clearly had profound personal impact. The footage shows a woman confronting something that challenged her entire worldview, not acting, but genuinely processing information that changed everything she thought she knew. The director's subsequent blacklisting from the industry wasn't due to the public feud as reported. My source confirms he was presented with a choice: permanent silence or permanent career death. His decision to fight back resulted in not just professional exile, but also the mysterious auditing of his finances, surveillance of his communications, and eventually, his complete withdrawal from public life. According to my source, the footage that remains most heavily guarded isn't of the supposed space anomalies themselves, but rather the discussions that happened when cameras were supposedly off, but still rolling, discussions between government advisors and producers about acceptable levels of disclosure and preparing the cultural terrain. These conversations suggest a calculated effort to use entertainment as a vehicle for gradually introducing certain concepts to the public. The lawsuit that effectively ended this production cited intellectual property concerns on the surface. But court transcripts reveal closed-door sessions where national security was repeatedly invoked. Why would discussions about an indie film starring Parker Posey require closed sessions, citing national security concerns, unless something far beyond typical entertainment was at stake? My investigation has revealed that following the production shutdown, every hard drive and piece of digital media associated with the film was confiscated, not by studio security, but by individuals who identified themselves as working for a private contractor with government clearances. Equipment was not simply collected, but degaussed on site, a level of data destruction typically reserved for classified materials. Parker Posey's career trajectory following this incident shows a distinct pattern: a complete avoidance of roles involving astronomy, space exploration, or government conspiracy narratives, despite these being popular film genres during this period. The specificity of this avoidance aligns perfectly with the rumored terms of her non-disclosure agreement. The space conspiracy Hollywood doesn't want you to see isn't just about potential evidence of structures or anomalies that challenge our understanding of space. It's about the mechanism through which information is controlled, narratives are shaped, and cultural perception is managed. This film wasn't just buried. It was erased in a way that reveals an infrastructure of influence extending far beyond typical studio politics. In the most revealing leaked footage, Posey can be seen having what she believes is a private conversation with the director. "If this is true," she says, "then everything, history, religion, our entire understanding of humanity's place, it all changes. Are we really the ones who should be making this call?" The director's response is chilling. "They've decided it's time people know, just not all at once. We're just the messengers. Who are they? And what exactly did they want message to the public?" The aftermath of this production changed indie filmmaking in ways few have recognized. Following the Celestial Witness shutdown, a new clause began appearing in indie film financing contracts, one that specifically grants investors the right to terminate projects that touch on sensitive scientific or security matters, regardless of prior approvals. This clause, now standard in the industry, can be traced directly back to the studio that buried Posey's film. My source, who has remained anonymous for obvious reasons, provided one final piece of information that connects all these elements. 3 months after production was terminated, a classified directive was allegedly issued to multiple government agencies regarding protocols for cultural narrative management, specifically around space-related discoveries. The timing cannot be coincidental. Now that you know the truth, here's what happens next. This information will likely face intense scrutiny and attempts to discredit it. The patterns of suppression that buried this film 20 years ago remain active and effective. Within days of my initial research into this story, unusual activity was detected on my research devices. Interview subjects suddenly became unavailable. Sources who had been willing to speak went silent after receiving calls from people they hadn't heard from in years. What happened to Parker Posey's banned film isn't just a Hollywood curiosity. It's a window into how information is controlled in our society. The footage exists. The witnesses are real. The systematic effort to erase all evidence of this production reveals a mechanism of influence far more sophisticated than typical Hollywood damage control. But here's the most disturbing revelation of all. My investigation suggests that Celestial Witness wasn't the only film subject to this treatment. At least 3 other productions from the same period, all dealing with space anomalies or alternative space histories, were similarly shut down under mysterious circumstances. The pattern suggests a coordinated effort to control specific narratives across the entertainment industry during a period when certain space discoveries may have been on the verge of wider acknowledgement. Parker Posey has never publicly commented on this chapter of her career. But in a 2015 interview about a completely unrelated project, she made a statement that takes on new meaning in this context. When asked about roles she regretted not taking, she paused for a long moment before responding. There are some stories that find you when the world is ready for them, not before. I've made peace with the ones that were ahead of their time. Was she referring to Celestial Witness? Was this her subtle acknowledgement of a project too revealing for its era? The leaked footage I've obtained represents just fragments of what was filmed, perhaps 10% of the total production. But even these fragments tell a story that challenges our understanding of disclosure, information control, and the thin line between entertainment and acclimatization. What happens next depends on how this information is received. If enough people recognize the significance of what was almost revealed through Parker Posey's banned film, perhaps the full footage will finally emerge. Perhaps the witnesses still bound by non-disclosure agreements will find the courage to come forward. Perhaps the truth about what was discovered, what was so significant that an entire film had to be erased from history, will finally be acknowledged. The question isn't just what Parker Posey and the director saw at that observatory 20 years ago. The question is, are we finally ready to see it too? The space conspiracy that Hollywood has worked so diligently to conceal isn't just about potential evidence of structures or anomalies beyond Earth. It's about who controls information, who decides what truths we're ready for, and who has the authority to erase history when it threatens to reveal too much. If you've made it this far, you're now part of this story. You're one of the few people who know about Parker Posey's erased film and what it almost revealed to the world. What you do with this information is up to you. But know this, the same forces that buried this film 20 years ago are still active, still monitoring, and still determined to control the narrative. This is just the beginning. There's more footage, more witnesses, and more revelations to come. Subscribe now and be part of the community that's finally bringing this decades-long conspiracy into the light. The truth about Parker Posey's banned film and what it revealed about our place in the cosmos won't stay buried forever. Some secrets are too significant to remain hidden. Some truths demand to be told. And sometimes, The most important revelations come from the stories they tried hardest to erase. The question isn't if the full truth will come out, but when, and whether you'll be there when it does. Estimated duration, 12.4 minutes.